Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi zidni ilma. Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan tayyiban wa amalan mutakabbala. Guys, this passage, subhanallah, is from Ezekiel 38.8. It's very relevant, and you'll see again the patterns emerge as we go through this together, and maybe what's happening in my mind's eye and what I'm seeing won't elude you, subhanAllah, and will make just as much sense to you as it does to me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Now, as far as this text is concerned, again, I just want to reinforce the fact that my position is that Iblis Lanatullahi alayhi has corrupted and manipulated these texts, utilizing individuals who are allied with him and his cause throughout the ages, which are the shayateen in ins. And again, that's the ilham that we discussed briefly in the previous vlog, that Iblis Lanatullahi seeks to copy the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through his minions and his allies and his servants, as it were. And this text is important for what's happening right now and is about to happen, what we've discussed and the run-up to, and we had pre-determined what we understood to be happening, and that seems to be exactly what's unfolding as we speak. Just follow me on this. I mean, Gog as an instrument of God. Now, I certainly don't believe Erdoğan to be the Gog that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to, or we refer to in Islam, Yajuj wa Majuj. Personally, and that doesn't make me right, I personally believe that it's a different makhluk, and we'll see. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reveal the truth of that matter in due course, I guess. Time will tell. But in this instance, taking the vantage point that this is deception from Iblis Lanatullahi, and let's read it accordingly. The Lord spoke to me, mortal man, he said, denounce Gog. So Gog would be Erdoğan, right, in this instance. So follow me on this train of thought, please. Just humor me until we get to the bottom of this passage. Chief ruler of the nations of Meshech and Tubal and the land of Magog, denounce him, and tell him that I, the sovereign Lord, am his enemy. I will turn him around, put hooks in his jaws, and drag him and all his troops away. His army, with its horses and uniformed riders, is enormous, and every soldier carries a shield and is armed with a sword. Men from Persia, which specifically is Iran, and you've seen how right now, very recently, Russia, Iran, and Turkey have become allied. Let's just look it up. Russia, Iran, and Turkey alliance. There you go. I didn't really have to do much. It just came up itself. News. Russia, Iran, and Turkey alliance. Oops. Turkey, Russia, and Iran links are form an alliance. Anyway, it's all there. It's in the Arab news, right? So the alliance is there now, which is quite convenient in terms of this particular passage of the Bible. Men from Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya are with him, and all have shields and helmets. All the fighting men of the lands of Gomer and Beth Togarmah in the north are with him, and so are men from many other nations. 57 Muslim nations say Trump is now disqualified from Israeli-Palestinian process. So this is an anti-Israel quartet, right? And 57 nations. These Muslim nations, again, we discussed this when it was happening, and I certainly raised alarm bells about it being very unsavory. Again, I've always highlighted this particular individual has been a very high degree Freemason and having custodianship of Al-Aqsa at the moment, but again assisting the cause of Iblis Lanatullahi and the forces. Again, Turkey, I've always maintained my position. Interesting that they were wearing red ties in this particular shoot. A red tie is a power tie in terms of Masonic symbolism. So you see two individuals when they meet diplomatically, very most often than not, you'll see them sharing ties which are either red or blue or purple. And these symbolize, purple symbolize, again, divinity, as in the apotheosis of man in Masonry. Red symbolizes the power tie. Blue is the passive tie, and that dictates the relationship between them two, and this is what they communicate in the esoteric, on the esoteric level to those within the fraternity. Now let's very quickly go back to this. All fighting men, okay. Tell him to get ready and have all his troops ready at his command. This is Erdoğan being referred to. After many years I will order him to invade a country where the people were brought back together from many nations and have lived without fear of war. Now, this is the country that is being referred to is Israel. And the people coming back from all over the world are what they claim to be the rightful heirs of Israel, the Jews. The false Jews, most of them are Tsars, but that's another topic for another time. A mountain of Israel, which, okay, so lived without fear. He will invade the mountains of Israel, which were desolate and deserted so long, but where all the people now live in safety. He and his army and the many nations with him will attack like a storm and cover the land like a cloud. This is what the sovereign Lord says to Gog. Okay, when the time comes. Now, the sovereign Lord in this particular instance, it's multifaceted, but I want you to think about now who's being referred to as Iblis, right? The sovereign Lord says to Gog. So Iblis, through this passage, is now Erdoğan को मुखातिब कर रहे हैं. Yeah, so Erdoğan is Gog here. When that time comes, you will start thinking of an evil plan. Okay, you will decide to invade a helpless country where the people live in peace and security in unwalled towns that have no defenses. So this is the helpless country is Israel, by the way, and the peaceful people, which is quite and again Iblis works in opposites. They're diametrically opposite to that. They're not peaceful at all. Warmongers, and they are perpetrating war globally, subhanAllah, through proxies. And the people being referred to in this particular passage are actually the Israeli citizens. You will plunder and loot the people who live in the cities where that were once in ruins. They have gathered from the nations, and now they have livestock and property and live at the crossroads of the world. The people of Sheba and Dedan and the merchants from the towns of Spain will ask you, have you assembled your army and attacked in order to loot and plunder? Do you intend to get the silver and gold, livestock and property, and to march off with all the spoils? Right. Now to the sovereign Lord, so the sovereign Lord sent me to tell Gog, so Iblis is being referenced here, sent me to tell Gog, which is Erdoğan, that he was saying to him, now while my people Israel live in security, you will set out. So ilham ho rahi hai from Iblis Lanatullahi to his I guess allied individuals, right? Now, while my people of Israel live in security, you will set out from your place in the far north. His people would be the people who are the ones perpetrating the fitna, right? Globally, which is Israel, right? So this is the sovereign Lord in this instance is Iblis. His people are the people, the false Jews who have occupied our lands. And Gog in this instance is, again, just to re-emphasize for this particular passage, is Erdoğan. From your place in the far north, right, this is Turkey, leading a large, powerful army of soldiers from many nations, It's all happening, subhanAllah, and we're unable to see this. It's very unfortunate. You will attack my people Israel like a storm moving across the land. When the time comes, I will send you to invade my land. I will send you to invade. इल्हाम हो रहा है, भेज रहे हैं, सबको इकट्ठा कर रहे हैं, from NATO to the Pope to all these nations, right? And you'll see all of this happening through the back door. We will lose Constantinople through this scheme. I will send you to invade my land in order to show the nations who I am, to show my holiness by what I do through you. This is Iblis talking. You are the one I was talking about long ago, when I announced through my servants, the prophets of Israel, that in days to come I would bring someone to attack Israel. The sovereign Lord has spoken. Right? अब Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala की सुन्नत थी कि Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to send other rebellious nations to attack as an azab, right? And we've seen that. That's the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala historically, where our enemies are used against us so that hamari rehbari ke liye. And this is exactly what's been talking about. But this is Iblis now hijacking that sunnah, right? And using it for his ends as a copycat. We understand there's nothing original about this fool. God's punishment of Gog. Now this is the most important passage in this particular instance, and what I have been, I guess, everything when it comes to the science PDF, the dreams, the science PDF, and then what I've been trying to impress on our beloved ulama ikram is only about having contingencies in place so that we can curb the effects of what the shayateen and ins and jinn have been scheming against us in and around the arrival of the star system and its exit. And this passage is the one that concerns me the most in all of this, and this is what I've been trying to impress on our ulama ikram, that Erdoğan cannot be trusted. The sovereign Lord says, on the day when Gog invades Israel, I will be furious. I declare in the heat of my anger that on that day there will be a severe earthquake in the land of Israel. Now understand, they have the technology and they're refining it. It's very similar to HARP, and that's not to the HARP isn't. I mean, there's a common misconception that it's actually used to manipulate the weather. It's not. There's another magnetic technology that's used after they seed the clouds with certain nanoparticulates, and then steer, redirect, or even increase the momentum and the speed and the severity of those particular storms, or make them dissipate as well. They can do that with these technologies, and that's one technology that will be handed over to Dajjal Lanatullahi during his grand appearance and will utilize and use it against the Ummah. Will be tested through those capabilities, but they can also artificially induce earthquakes now. Now, we discussed, and I've spoken to you about it and archived it on the channel during my visit for Umrah in 2007. And this is how all this saga started from, in my dreams and everything. What I witnessed with my own eyes is that they were digging tunnels underneath the grounds of Al-Aqsa. And this, my position was to undermine the integrity in anticipation of the foundations of Al-Aqsa, in anticipation of these earthquakes, right? Now, if they can artificially induce it, or maybe perhaps it will be the system that will cause it. Either way, they're expecting a seismic event caused artificially or by the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one or the other, which will cause, because the integrity has been undermined, which would increase the possibility of the foundations collapsing of Al-Aqsa, which then they would be able to claim a divine card to then establish their temple on, right? And this is the game I understand they're playing, anticipating this seismic event or artificially inducing it during this time. So I need ulama ikram to be very muhtat about that. I've archived this a few years ago onto the channel, and I'm sure many of you who have been following the science distribution list since are privy to that, or do recollect me sharing something of that note. At any rate, it's available on the channel. You just got to look it up on the search engine on the channel, and the vlog should come up. Every fish and bird, every animal, large and small, and every human being on the face of the earth will tremble for fear of me. During this time, it will be a huge time of tribulation, of fear and anxiety. And this is something that we can't afford as Muslims. This is, again, something that Iblis Lanatullah alayhi is trying to artificially induce on the Ummah. They need us to be irrational and think irrationally and emotionally. Subhanallah, we can't let our passions overrule us. Subhanallah, we got to remain very calm in this storm and think laterally and objectively at this whole situation, because we don't want to be lulled into this. And this is exactly what's happening. The Muslim Arabic speaking world is going to be driven to their deathbeds, which is something I've always maintained. I've certainly maintained that Erdoğan cannot be trusted. And this passage I'm going to now impress on our ulama ikram is referring to Erdoğan as Gog. And let's finish off this passage and you'll see exactly what my concerns are. Every fish and bird, every animal, large and small, and every human being on the face of the earth will tremble for fear of me. Mountains will fall, cliffs will crumble, and every wall will collapse. I will terrify Gog. I will terrify Gog, with all sorts of calamities. Gog, Erdoğan. I, the sovereign Lord, have spoken. Iblis has spoken. His men will turn his swords against one another. They will turn against each other. I will punish him with disease and bloodshed. I've talked about, and again through the science PDF, subhanallah, and there's no serendipity here or chance. We've discussed at length the technology of biowarfare that they've developed and how these biological weapons are DNA specific. So they would kill a people of a certain DNA strand. So let's say, for instance, Arabs only, even if the room was filled with other Jewish individuals or people who were Caucasian in nature. They would survive the biological attack, but the individuals with, let's say, an Arabic genome would die from that. And again, this goes back to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he discusses that there will be 2/3 of the world's population will die through war, famine, and disease. And these diseases, I understand them to be artificially created through laboratories, and is within their arsenal. I'm not trying to cause any kind of fear, but again, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ about reducing the spread of contamination, incubating the people within a certain border or area of that place, not entering it or not exiting it. All of those, that hadith is very relevant, and certainly that whole chapter was an important one, and with a very powerful lesson and message for us during this time. Subhanallah. So I mean, again, the purpose behind that particular was an example for now, for what's to come, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and guide us. So there'll be that quarantine, which is really important to reduce the spread of those diseases. And these diseases, the shayateen in jinn have developed. I'm not trying to scare you. This is factual stuff, and I'm sharing with you guys. The sovereign Lord has spoken. His men will turn their swords against one another. I will punish him with disease and bloodshed. That's going to be the military attacks. Torrents of rain and hail, we already know that they can do that. In fact, today's the 2nd of April, and we discussed that we're going to experience snowfall because they're manipulating it, and that they intend to, and that's exactly what's happened. There's one individual certainly who was on this distribution list who I spoke to about this a week or so ago, and told him that that's exactly what they intend to do, and he reminded me of it today that we spoke about it, and he said they're going to make it snow over the weekend, and that's exactly what's happened today. Again, it's very unnatural for it to happen during this time of the year. We all know that the weather has extremely changed, and this has been highlighted in the science PDF that these sort of events are going to occur in the very not so distant future. Okay, together with fire and sulfur, that's again new weapons, military weapons, and sulfur they're already using over the people, over our brothers and sisters in Israel. the Palestinians. Okay, will pour down on him and his army and on the many nations that are on his side. Okay, so these are the many nations we talked about. And like I said, this individual is going to be the means through which all of these, most of these people are, well, unaware of what they're doing. But then again, maybe perhaps they do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best who they're allied with. But I'll tell you one thing, these two individuals, I personally wouldn't trust them with a barge pole. And this is through what I've seen and understand is happening, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Okay, the torrents of rain and hail together with sulfur will pour down on him and his army and on the many nations that are on his side. This is happening right now, right? This passage of the Bible is happening right now. And Iblis is the instigator of this. He's the architect of this. He is the one who is pulling the strings, and everyone else below are the puppets whose strings he is pulling from both sides of the conflict in order to bring about this particular passage, right, into fruition. In this way, I will show all the nations that I am great and that I am holy. They will know then that I am Lord. He is referring to himself, Na'uzubillah min zalik. Anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I wanted to share this particular passage, and then you'll understand that in terms of comparative religious studies, and then certain passages of these books, and then the grubby, dirty fingerprints of Iblis Lanatullah alayh are becoming evident. But then, just without me having to impress on you any of what I've said, if you were to read this passage and then look at current affairs, you'd understand very clearly that the individual being referred to in this particular passage is Erdoğan, as in Gog, who's rallying up all these other Muslim nations to attack Israel. And this is what's going to happen very, very, very soon. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Again, my purpose has never been popularity or any of that. And I know that the ulama ikram understand this, because my bahas has only been with the ulama ikram, or maybe some other, mashallah, alhamdulillah, competent professional individuals with professional professions who have taken an interest in all of this, and certainly see it. I don't know what's wrong, subhanallah. It seems that our beloved ulama ikram seem to lack a holistic view of the world and what's happening in light of the scheming of the shayateen in Ins and Jinn against the Ummah. It seems that we've got a fractured understanding of what's happening, and there's no one. It's very disheartening that there really is no one that sees. We're so far down the pecking order. It's unbelievable. On a Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.